Hello everyone, welcome back to ASR, African Stories Realized. This is a full recap of Outlaws Season 2, Episodes 11 to 20. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Episode 11 picks up with a tense scene between Bandile and Mthunzi, where Bandile confronted his cousin about his affair with Buang, insisting that so long as he lives under his roof and bears the Menziwa name, he would do as he says. A defiant Mthunzi refused before an angry Uncle Emmanuel confronted Bandile, accusing him of attacking his son, with Nolwandle standing between them as she tried to calm the situation. Bandile handed Mthunzi's father a letter revealing that Mthunzi has feelings for Buang, who is Tladi's sister-in-law. Bandile reminded his uncle that Tladi was the man who stole their livestock and brutally murdered his parents, Emmanuel's brother and his wife. Mthunzi's father was shocked and walked away in disappointment as Mthunzi tried to explain himself. Meanwhile in Lesotho, Leruo was considering selling one of his cows, but Zeko revealed that it would be a loss because the cow was pregnant. Leruo then expressed his desire to breed more cows to help his wife Sihle build a clinic, but Zeko warned him that he would never sell enough cows to support a woman like Sihle. Leruo then reflected on his past life as a cattle raider, but admitted to his friends that he would never ride again and is comfortable with the life he's living now. In the Lesotho mountains, Buang accompanied Nyakalo and King Tladi as they overlooked the valley, discussing the beauty of the land. They were interrupted by Buang's friend Genewe, who reported that some of the new recruits had stolen money from Tladi's house before running away. Tladi instructed Buang and Genewe to find them and bring every single one of them back. The group was causing havoc at a tavern in the valley, where Buang found them and ordered them to return with her to the compound. However, on their way back, Buang asked Genewe to return with the new recruits while she went to check if Mthunzi came to meet her. Upon returning to the hideout, Nyakalo became nauseous, with the mother immediately suspecting that her daughter had fallen pregnant. Meanwhile, the top four questioned Moretlo about the whereabouts of her spy, Morubisi, who was sent to follow Leabua. Moretlo reassured them that her spy will return. However, the other members of the top four expressed concern that the spy might be selling them out to Tladi. The group then discussed a plan to capture Tladi once Morubisi returned, but there was still a sense of distrust in the air. Suddenly, everyone at the table drew their guns and pointed them at each other. They exchanged threats before ultimately putting their weapons down. Back at the Biela home, Nolwandle had a talk with Mthunzi. She told him that Bandile was wrong to force him to marry Thulisile. However, she also stated that Mthunzi is not innocent in the matter. Mthunzi insisted that the situation is complicated, revealing that Buang shot herself, risking her life to save him. Mthunzi's father, Emmanuel, then confronted his son about his Sotho lover and expressed his disappointment. However, Mthunzi had a change of heart. He interrupted his family, who were seated for dinner, and apologized for disgracing the family. The episode ends with Mthunzi announcing to the family that he will marry Thulisile. Episode 12 picks up with Tladi putting a sinister plan into motion. He instructed Musa to go to Bergville and secretly round up everyone. Buang offered to tag along, but Tladi dismissed her, telling her to show the ropes to her friend Genewe and ensure that no one leaves the hideout. Meanwhile in Okabeni, Sipho arrived with armed men and confronted Bandile, accusing him of being unreliable. Sipho insisted that him and his men would now be responsible for protecting the people of Bergville, but Bandile was not having it, as he asserted that Sipho would not stop him from protecting his village. Bandile insisted that no one in Bergville knows the Basotho better than him, but Sipho insisted that it was only because his sister was foolish enough to marry a Mosotho man. Sipho continued, accusing Mthunzi of having an affair with one of their kidnappers in Lesotho, Buang. An angry Bandile grabbed Sipho by the neck and defended his cousin, revealing that Mthunzi is engaged to be married to Thulisile Kumang. Bandile reasserted his role as protector of the community and warned Sipho before once again asking him to leave his property. Nolwandle then argued with Bandile about him forcing Mthunzi to get married, but Bandile suggested that marriage will be good for Mthunzi, insisting that they will get to know each other. However, Nolwandle did not hold back, letting him know that she hated this control inside of him. Meanwhile in Lesotho, Sihle, who was settling in at work, suggested a date night with Leruo to celebrate the opening of the clinic. However, Leruo informed her that some people from the village had asked for his help recovering their stolen cattle. Sihle questioned if it was about Tladi, but Leruo insisted that it was not. Meanwhile at Tladi's hideout, Nyakalo's mother, Disebo, was performing a ritual for the protection and guidance of the impending heir. However, Nyakalo arrived in discomfort and expressed fear for her marriage if she has another miscarriage. Disebo reminded her that she brought Tlali back from the dead and reassured her daughter that she will birth an heir for Tlali. Nyakalo then revealed her pregnancy to an elated Tlali, who announced to his cheering followers that everyone under disciplinary action was forgiven and that there would be no more punishment. He credited his queen Nyakalo for this and revealed that they have an heir on the way. Tlali ordered for the fattest cow to be slaughtered as a celebration ensued. He later shared the good news with his father, even naming a cow Morena in honor of his heir. Leruo congratulated his son. Later that night, Buang and one of the followers, Nkwe, were flirting by the kraal and left the gate open, allowing the cow that Tlali just named in honor of his son to escape. Back at the Tlali homestead, Leruo and his men plotted a course for the Free State, where they planned to raid some cattle. Moreto watched on with pride as Leruo rallied his men for his first raid in a while. The men executed a perfect raid, herding the cows and ushering them away in broad daylight without firing a single shot. Meanwhile, at the Okabeni farm, Mthunzi and Thulisile discussed their upcoming marriage. Mthunzi admitted he was scared, but Thulisile reassured him that their marriage would bring joy to their families. Bandile later went to Mthunzi and informed him that they are going to the Khumalo homestead for lobola negotiations the next morning. He reassured Mthunzi that he was doing the right thing, showing maturity, and that this marriage is a blessing for their family and the entire community. Spamola then went to apologize to Mthunzi for giving Bandile's letter for Buang and presented a letter to him that was delivered by a worker from Lesotho. Mthunzi read the letter from Buang, who expressed her love for him despite their different worlds, suggesting that they meet by the stream where he was last captured, promising to wait for him every day. The episode ends with a determined Mthunzi packing his bags as he plans to go back to Lesotho. Episode 13 picks up in the Lesotho mountains, where Tlali and his followers were searching for the cow he named Morena in honor of his unborn child. Tlali suggested that Nyakalo take it easy and allow them to search for the lost cow, but she insisted that she was fit and able to aid in the search. Nyakalo and Tlali soon found the cow before returning to their hideout, where Tlali interrogated his followers, questioning who was responsible for letting the cow out of the kraal. The followers pointed fingers at each other before Kenewe, who was covering for Buang, placed the blame on two of the followers, insisting that she saw them canoodling by the kraal. Tlali banished the two followers from his kingdom as they were relegated to scavenging for food in the wilderness. However, just as Tlali was issuing his judgment, Nyakalo experienced some discomfort before showing her mother that she was bleeding, as they began to fear the worst for her pregnancy. Meanwhile, at the Okabeni farm, Emmanuel and Deli confronted Bandile, revealing that Mthunzi had ran away and left a letter stating that he had no choice but to leave. Bandile was unbothered and insisted that Mthunzi was weak because he wasn't raised right. Emmanuel and Deli reprimanded him for the comment before Nolante stepped in and scolded her husband for his obsession with the Basotho, reminding him that the last time it almost ended their marriage and drove him into the arms of another woman. Nolante then advised Bandile to stop acting like a drill sergeant and go find his cousin. Bandile then confronted Spamola, questioning him on the whereabouts of Mthunzi, but Spamola insisted he didn't know where he was. Bandile then received a phone call from a car tracking company revealing that they had found the location of the vehicle that Mthunzi took when he left. Mthunzi was determined to make it to Lesotho as he ignored the calls from his father. However, he was stopped dead in his tracks by Bandile, who was prepared to give his cousin a few lashings if not for Spamola's intervention. Mthunzi tried to explain to Bandile that he was in love with Buang and how difficult it was watching his mother raise him alone because she couldn't be with his father, Emmanuel. Bandile did not care about Mthunzi's sob story and threatened to disown his cousin if he crossed the border into Lesotho. Back in Lesotho, Moreto welcomed her son after a successful raid in the Free State. Leruo admitted that he was proud of himself for once again doing what he knows best. His mother then showered him with praise before leaving for a meeting with the top four, who she revealed were impressed by Leruo's work. Leruo then confided in his friend Zeko that he really missed riding, and that he was happy to be able to make some money to help out Sihle, with Zeko even suggesting that they strike again soon. Leruo then gave Sihle a stack of money to buy a new car, but Sihle questioned where he got so much cash. Leruo claimed that the people of the community had contributed it since he was helping them keep their cattle safe from thieves, an obvious lie. Meanwhile, Moreto met up with the top four and invited them to a homestead to split the profits of the latest raid. However, while distributing the ill-gotten profits, a standoff ensued when some of the top four members confronted Moreto for trying to keep some of the money for them in a savings account. The episode ends with them agreeing that Leruo must round up his men for another raid so they can make more money. Episode 14 picks up in Lesotho with heartbreak for Nyakalo, who was grief-stricken following her miscarriage. Her mother tried to console her and advised her not to tell Tlali about the baby. She then sent Buang to gather some herbs to cleanse her sister's womb. When Buang returned, Nyakalo confided in her sister, revealing that she had suffered a miscarriage. After cleansing her womb, Nyakalo wasted no time trying to seduce Tlali in an attempt to conceive another child. However, Tlali insisted that he didn't want to sleep with her while she was carrying his heir. Meanwhile, at the Okabeni farm, the Biela's breakfast was interrupted by Thulisile's family, who confronted them for not showing up to the lobola negotiations, demanding that the Bielas pay a penalty of 5 cows. Emmanuel tried to bargain, offering sheep instead, before Mthunzi interrupted the elders to apologize for his conduct, promising them that he will make things right and marry Thulisile. Bandile then told Mthunzi that he was proud of him for taking responsibility before surprising his wife with a beautiful picnic and a home-cooked meal, rabbit meat and spinach, which was the first meal Bandile ever cooked for her. Bandile then apologized to his wife and asked her to be patient with him as he tries to guide Mthunzi. Meanwhile, Mthunzi met up with Thuli and apologized for not showing up to the lobola negotiations as the married couple shared their first kiss together. Back in Lesotho, Leruo and the top 4 planned for another raid. However, things didn't go according to plan, and the episode ends with the wounded Leruo being carried into his home as his mother rushed to his side. Episode 15 picks up with a panic at Sihle's clinic where Moreto arrived with the wounded Leruo. They put him on the stretcher where Sihle frantically tried to tend to his wounds. After taking care of his injuries, she questioned the circumstances surrounding his shooting, but Leruo insisted that he didn't see who shot him and promised Sihle he would be more careful. Meanwhile in Bergville, the Bielas met up with Thuli's uncles for lobola negotiations. They charged the Bielas 13 cows plus an additional cow and 2 goats, insisting that she was still a virgin. The Bielas did not bargain and agreed to pay the proposed price and penalty for not showing up to the previous lobola negotiations. It wasn't long before the celebrations between the two families commenced, with everyone in traditional Zulu attire. Thuli was officially handed over to the Biela family, but Mthunzi looked miserable, which his father called him out for. On their wedding night, Mthunzi and Thuli started making out, but he began hallucinating about Buang before rejecting his new wife and deciding to sleep in the guest room instead. Meanwhile at Tladi's hideout, him and Nyakalo discussed her pregnancy as Tladi reassured her that they'll have a healthy child and his intention is to provide it with everything he never had, including filling a kraal with 100 cows, which he declared will be known as Moshusha's kraal after their unborn son. However, Nyakalo continued to hide her miscarriage, with her mother even preparing a potion that would help her seduce Tladi in the hope of conceiving another baby. She gave the concussion to Tladi, but just as he was taking the first sip, they were interrupted by Buang and Nkwe, the boy she had recently been flirting with. Tladi questioned if they were dating, but Buang strongly denied it, despite Nkwe expressing his desire to be with her. Nyakalo quickly kicked them out and continued trying to get Tladi to drink her potion. Back at the Tsole homestead, where Leruo was still recovering, the police arrived following a report that Leruo had been shot. The episode ends with Leruo getting detained after it's revealed that Sihle was the one who reported him as a gunshot victim. Episode 16 picks up in Bergville, where Spamola was partying with his girlfriend. The festive atmosphere is abruptly interrupted when they captured a Sotho spy and tied him to a wooden pole. Bandile confronted him, demanding answers. The spy, visibly injured and crying, pleaded for his life and claimed that he was only following instructions. Bandile threatened him with violence if he didn't reveal Tladi's whereabouts, before ordering Spamola to tie him to the van so they can drag him around Bergville to intensify the torture. The spy once again begged for his life and promised to tell everything. He led them to another spy who, under interrogation, revealed that they had been paid to spy on the Bielas by Tladi's right-hand man, Mosa. Bandile decided to release the spies, but ordered them to inform him if they heard of any more spies in the area. Meanwhile in Lesotho, Moreto confronted Sihle about involving the police, questioning her judgment and loyalty to her husband. Sihle defended her actions, stating her professional obligation as a doctor is to report a gunshot wound and express concern for Leruo's dangerous lifestyle. Moreto, however, remained critical, questioning what kind of woman gets a husband arrested, expressing her disappointment in Sihle's naivety despite her education. After being released, Leruo went straight to Sihle's clinic and confronted her for reporting him to the police. Sihle once again reiterated that she was only doing her job, but Leruo reminded her that she was his wife first. He revealed that the police treated him like a criminal, taunting and tormenting him all night at the station. He insisted that despite trying to clean up his act, they'll always see him as a criminal. Sihle then apologized before the couple made up. However, the top 4 were not happy with Leruo's recent arrest, but one of the top 4 members revealed that he made sure Leruo's police case was closed, but they blamed Sihle and berated the Tsoles for taking a Zulu bride. However, Leruo's mother assured them that they had Sihle under control as they all agreed to focus on the next raid. Leruo then got his gear and rounded up his men as they set off for another raid, but little did he know that Sihle was following them. At Tladi's hideout, Nyakalo's potion seemingly worked as her and Tladi lay in bed after sleeping together. Meanwhile, Tladi's followers were cooking when Nkwe once again started flirting with Buang. He questioned her loyalty, reminding her that he spends every day with her, chasing after her, while her Zulu lover Mthunzi doesn't care about her and likely has other girlfriends. Buang firmly rejected Nkwe, but Musa joined their discussion. He insisted that Nkwe was right, reiterating to Buang that Mthunzi doesn't care about her. Nyakalo also praised Buang's relationship with Nkwe, giving her support. However, Buang insisted that she wasn't interested in him, leading Nyakalo to advise her sister to move on, warning that her affair with Mthunzi will only bring chaos. Buang's friend, Genewe, then approached her, expressing her admiration for Nyakalo and how she looks out for her sister. However, Buang suggested that Nyakalo was self-serving and accidentally revealed that her sister recently suffered a miscarriage. Following her slip-up, Buang saw Genewe to secrecy, asking her to keep their conversation between them. Meanwhile, at the Biela home, Mthunzi continued to give his new wife the cold shoulder. Nolande then tried to comfort Thuli, who confided in her. She questioned Mthunzi's reasons for marrying her, even suggesting that she might not be beautiful or attractive enough for him. Nolanda comforted Mthunzi's bride before confronting him for neglecting his wife, stating that he was forced into the marriage. He then revealed that Buang wrote him a letter, which is why he ran away before the Lobola negotiations. He declared that Buang loves him, and a conflicted Nolanda empathized before walking away. She then went to see Bandile and urged him to speak to Mthunzi, revealing that him and Thuli still haven't consummated their marriage. When Bandile got home, he confronted Mthunzi and encouraged him to sleep with his wife, but Mthunzi was defiant, even telling Bandile to do the deed himself if he's so concerned about it. Bandile then called his wife but couldn't reach her, ultimately leaving her a voice message questioning where she was so he could pick her up. Later that evening, as the family was preparing for dinner, Bandile asked Mthunzi if he had seen Nolande, but Mthunzi revealed that he hadn't seen her since they went out earlier. Bandile started to worry. 2 police officers then arrived at the Biela home, and the episode ends with them informing Bandile that they found his wife's car abandoned on an old road, but she was nowhere to be found. Episode 17 picks up in the Biela home, with Bandile speaking to the 2 police officers who delivered the news of his wife's disappearance. Bandile then instructed his uncle to stay home with the family while he went to the scene of Nolande's disappearance with the police. When they arrived on the scene, Bandile confronted the police officers, accusing them of failing to do their job and not finding his wife. He berated them for leaving his wife's car abandoned to come and inform him she was missing, stating that he would do their job for them. He then spotted Nolande's phone on the ground near her abandoned car, making him worry even more, prompting Bandile and his men to search for her. While they were searching for Nolande, he received a call informing him that she wasn't the only person missing. Members of other families in the community had also disappeared. Meanwhile, Leruo and his men, armed with rifles, approached a kraal full of cattle in another raid. However, Sihle, who had been following Leruo, confronted her husband, questioning whose cattle they were there to steal. Leruo and his men continued herding the cattle until Sihle fired a warning shot into the air with a pistol. This alerted the cattle owners, forcing Leruo and his men to quickly mount their horses and make a narrow escape. However, one of the riders was shot during the escape. As Leruo and Sihle tried to help the injured raider, Sihle confronted her husband again, accusing him of being like Tlali and lying to her. She accused her of giving her blood money for the clinic, calling him a liar and a killer. Leruo admitted that he's a thief, but insisted that it's in his blood and he only did it to provide for her. But then Sihle broke down in tears and reminded him that she has no parents because of his people's cattle raiding ways. Back at the Okabeni farm, where workers were tending to crops, a group of masked men armed with rifles and pistols ambushed the workers, forcing them to put their hands up and assaulting one of them, who fell to the ground bleeding. Bandile was then informed that Spamola and the other workers had been kidnapped by a hard-headed hooligan named Sipho, who was working with the neighboring farmers. Uncle Emmanuel warned him not to go anywhere, but Bandile was determined to find them. The kidnapped farm workers, including Spamola, were blindfolded and tied before being forced out of a truck in a field. Sipho, who was holding a pistol, confronted them, accusing them of helping Tlali to kidnap. He threatened to bury them alive if they didn't reveal Tlali's whereabouts, but Spamola, who is a Mosotho, denied any connection to Tlali. Bandile and his men arrived at the scene where the unhinged Sipho threatened to blow their brains out. Bandile, with his hands raised, tried to de-escalate the situation, telling Sipho to calm down, but Sipho remained defiant, accusing Bandile of being responsible for the conflict. The episode ends in a tense standoff, with Bandile promising to find Tlali and bring everyone's families home safely. Episode 18 picks up at the Okabeni farm, where Bandile announced to his uncle and aunt he was going to Lesotho. Emmanuel questioned if Bandile would be able to handle the situation alone, but he assured him that he had Spamola by his side and other men who had pledged to join him. Mthunzi was eager to go to Lesotho despite Thuli expressing her concern. Uncle Emmanuel also tried to discourage Mthunzi, but he insisted that he must do the right thing and help his brother, refusing to change his mind. Thuli was not sticking around to wait for him. She packed her bags and informed Aunt Deli that she was going back home. Aunt Deli urged her to put her luggage back and not embarrass herself, offering to help fix her marriage with traditional medicine. Thuli was skeptical, but Aunt Deli insisted that Mthunzi would come back to her if she used muti. Deli then gave Thuli the muti and specific instructions on how to use it. Meanwhile in Lesotho, Tladi's hostages, including Nolande, arrived at the hideout chained together. Tlali and Nyakalo taunted the chained hostages, but Nolande defiantly stated that she wasn't scared of them and warned them that her husband would find them and make them pay for kidnapping her. While in captivity, Nolande met Buang and revealed that Mthunzi was still in love with her, despite being married to another woman. When Bandile and his men arrived in Lesotho, they were welcomed by Sihle and her in-laws. Leruo and his mother offered them more men and horses to aid their cause, with Moretlo pledging the full support of the top four. Despite his eagerness to join the search, Bandile ordered Mthunzi to stay at the Dzole homestead, but Mthunzi was eager to see his Sotho lover. He then made his way to the river where Buang was waiting, as the couple reunited with a kiss. Meanwhile, Leruo took Bandile and his men to Leabua's house and interrogated Tladi's father. Bandile demanded to know where Tladi was keeping his wife, but Leabua denied knowing anything. Bandile's men then put a plastic bag over Leabua's head, suffocating him, while Bandile repeatedly asked for Tladi's location. Bandile repeatedly asked for Tladi's whereabouts. However, the old man refused to give up his son's location, forcing Bandile to lose control. He unleashed an assault on Leabua before Leruo stepped in to stop Bandile from killing Tladi's father, who is also Leruo's uncle. Bandile and his men then made their way to the foot of the mountains, and the episode ends as they find a sign from Tlali demanding a ransom of 200 cows. Episode 19 picks up with an excited Tlali who gives Nyakalo a sharp spear. He explained that his son's spear... man, Tlali's just way too emotional, yo. Episode 19 picks up with an excited Tlali who gave Nyakalo a sharp spear. He explained that it's his son's spear and asked her to keep it safe as it will protect him. He then expressed his love for her, mentioning her prior miscarriages, before Nyakalo reassured him that this time she will carry their heir in her arms. The couple then cut each other's fingers with the spear as they performed a twisted blood pact. Meanwhile at the Dzole homestead, Bandile revealed that Tlali was demanding a ransom of 200 cows for his wife. He instructed his men to search all the Lesotho mountains and bring his wife back alive, threatening to kill anyone who gets in their way. Leruo questioned Bandile's approach, suggesting they call off the mission if they're not on the same page. He insisted that the war against Tlali was not just for Bergville, but for all Basotho. Leruo's mother then received a call and informed the group that the top four captured some of Tladi's boys and were on their way. Meanwhile, Mthunzi and Buang were canoodling by the river. Buang rubbed some mud on Mthunzi's back as the couple joked about the night they spent together. Mthunzi then asked her to help them rescue Nolande. He asked Buang to take them to Tladi's hideout, but she refused, stating that Nolande would be in more danger if they tried to rescue her. Mthunzi begged for her help, but Buang told him to go to hell before walking away. Back at Tladi's hideout in the dilapidated bus where Nolande and the other captives were being held, Nolande protested that she was pregnant and needed supplements and healthy food, but Nyakalo dismissed her. They were then interrupted by Musa, who reported that Tladi's father had been taken to the clinic after Bandile's assault. At Sihle's clinic, where the injured Leruo was being treated by Sihle, Tlali's men busted in, guns drawn. They tied up Sihle and the nurse before leaving with Leruo. Some villagers later arrived to free Sihle and Letta, but they were not happy. They expressed their frustration with the ongoing chaos, blaming the Zulus for the situation. However, a defiant Letta defended Sihle, reminding them that Tlali was the one bringing crime into the community. Meanwhile, Bandile and his men interrogated Tlali's followers, demanding to know where he was, but the boys refused to talk. Moreto intervened, asking Bandile not to hurt the children, but Bandile insisted that the boy will speak. However, the boy, bleeding, defiantly refused, before an angry Bandile hit him again, forcing Leruo to stop him, reminding him they need information first. While the two argued, Tlali's follower grabbed a knife out of Bandile's boot and took his own life, to the dismay of Leruo and his mother. Back at Tlali's hideout, Nolwandle's water broke as she went into labor. A desperate Nyakalo ordered for Nolwandle to be moved to her mother's house before revealing to her mother that she plans to steal Nolwandle's baby after she gives birth and pass it off as her own. Disebo warned her daughter that Nolwandle was too far along in her pregnancy for Tlali to believe that the baby was theirs, but Nyakalo was determined to see it through. In Disebo's house, Nolwandle screamed in pain while Nyakalo's mother helped her deliver the baby. However, Tlali found out that Nolwandle was in labor and called Bandile to inform him that his wife was giving birth before demanding an extra 50 cows on top of the original 200 cow ransom as a penalty for Bandile's assault on his father. Nolwandle later woke up after delivery, begging to see her baby, but Disebo told her that the baby didn't make it. Nolwandle cried out in despair, refusing to believe it as she continued demanding to see her baby. On his return to the Tlali homestead, a letter from Buang was delivered to Mthunzi, asking him to meet her before the hostage exchange. Mthunzi then went to a concerned Bandile, and the episode ends with him suggesting that he has a plan to rescue Nolwandle. Episode 20 picks up at Tlali's hideout, where Buang took Nolwandle to a freshly dug grave as she grieved the loss of her child. Disebo, however, expressed deep concern, questioning Nyakalo's sanity and plan, reminding her that Tlali is not foolish and will notice that the baby is not a newborn. The undeterred Nyakalo insisted that her mother must help her in concealing the baby and preventing its growth. Disebo dismissed the plan as impossible, but Nyakalo was determined to convince Tlali that the baby is hers, warning her mother to remain silent if she cannot offer support. Little did she know that Kenewe was eavesdropping, and she wasted no time reporting to Tlali that Nyakalo had lied to Nolwandle about the death of her baby. Tlali immediately went to confront Nyakalo and her mother, demanding to know the whereabouts of the Zulu baby, ordering them to hand him over. Nyakalo denied any knowledge of the baby. However, the child started crying, leading Tlali to find him in his hiding place. He questioned why Nyakalo stole the child, but she insisted they need him and can keep him as their own. An angry Tlali refused to have a Zulu baby in his kingdom before instructing Disebo to prepare the hostages for the exchange and ordering Kenewe to return the child to his mother, despite Nyakalo's objections. Meanwhile at the Okabeni farm, where preparations for the exchange were underway, an angry mob confronted the Bielas at gunpoint, protesting the inclusion of their cattle in the ransom. However, Uncle Emmanuel disarmed the leader and defused the situation, reminding them that they have no choice if they want to see their loved ones again. Back in Lesotho, things were still tense between Leruo and Sihle, who was giving him the silent treatment after finding out that he was still stealing cattle. He expressed his sadness about their complicated relationship, insisting that he can't live without her and questioning if she feels the same. Sihle remained silent, prompting Leruo to accuse her of being prepared to abandon him and return to her family if Nolwandle had not been abducted. Leruo urged Sihle to speak, but she was reluctant to discuss the matter. Back at the Tlali homestead, preparations for the hostage exchange continued. Sihle pleaded with Bandile not to resort to unnecessary killing. However, Bandile dismissed her concerns, insisting he didn't care and demanding to know whose side she was on, reminding her that she got into bed with the enemy and now she's defending them. He reiterated his sole desire for Nolwandle's safe return, promising to do whatever it takes to ensure it. Sihle then asked Leruo to prove his trustworthiness by keeping an eye on Bandile and preventing him from harming innocent people. Bandile and Mthunzi then got their plan underway, with Mthunzi meeting up with Buang. The couple once again declared their love for each other, but Buang revealed that she can't interfere with Tlali's plans, but reassured Mthunzi that the hostages would be released safely if Bandile hands over the cows. The couple agreed to meet up again after the exchange before going their separate ways. However, One of Bandile's men followed Buang. Bandile and Mthunzi, along with other armed men, continued to stalk Buang through the tall grass before ambushing her. Bandile, holding Buang at gunpoint, demanded to know the location of Tlali and the hostages, as she came to the realization that Mthunzi had betrayed her. Tlali then arrived with his armed group as a tense standoff ensued. Bandile ordered Tladi's men to lower their weapon, but Tlali insisted that no one tells him what to do. He then threatened Bandile, ordering one of his followers to take the baby away from Nolwandle and throw it into the stream. Bandile called Spamola, instructing him to give all the cows to Tladi's men. Tlali then released the hostages, but Bandile and Nolwandle's reunion was cut short. The episode ends with Nolwandle getting shot by Tlali, as a devastated Bandile cradled her lifeless body in his arms. I think we'll stop there for today and pick it up here in the next recap. I don't really like that Nolwandle was a casualty of Bandile's cause here, especially because I think Tladi's a bit too overpowered at this point. He's already killed Bandile's parents and wife, so even if Bandile ends up defeating Tlali, it won't be worth it. But I'm only halfway through the season, so hopefully there'll be some redemption in the second half. Look out for the next recap and don't forget to like and subscribe. We're almost at 50,000 subscribers and I want to do something special for when we hit that mark. Thank you for watching. This is ASR, for the love of the African filmmaking and storytelling.